All right, Saints fans and who that's from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley. I'm here with Bob Rose with the Bayou Blitz, as well as our special guest, Mr. Michael Detillier. What's going on, guys?
Good, thank you. Appreciate it, Kyle. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you guys as well.
Hope everybody in New Orleans Saints land, and especially you, Mike, and especially you, Kyle, are staying safe, staying healthy.
That's the way to go, man. That's the way to go right now. We have no other choice. Yeah. Well, how things been going for you, Mike? What's been happening in the Bayou area?
Well, it's still busy for me this time of year. It's amazing, no, not only just Saints, but certainly with LSU and the impact they've had in college football, recruiting. Everybody wants a 2021 look at, one draft's ended, somebody wants you, okay, you got to do the next one. And so looking at that particular deal, and so my eyes are better now. I haven't studied film extensively, in about a month. So now I'm back to it. But so it's still super busy for me. It's that time of year. I probably got another couple of weeks of it, and then probably some downtime. We don't know what'll happen with OTAs and workouts. That sort of thing has basically been put on the shelf. What summer training camp will look like. So, a lot of unknowns, and you're sort of guessing of what's going to happen. I think much more you definitive on the NFL than you are in college football,
right?
Where I think college football has sort of said, hey, listen, we want fans in the stands. The NFL, man, the game goes on. I don't care if they got 3 people in the stands, because that TV money's rolling in.
Right.
They're not worried about that. They want that TV money. So it'll be interesting to see this offseason. But can you imagine if you're a rookie coach and you're taking over and you don't have any of that, you don't have the OTAs, you don't have that rookie session, you don't have all those little things, man. You think about what's going on in Carolina. I mean, that's a rebuilding job to begin with. And now, you got nothing to hang your hat on. And I think Sean made the right decision. He knew his team is an experienced team. They know what to do. Coming in shape is going to be priority for him. It always has, but I think even more this year. But knowing what to do, I think it'll give a head start for teams like New Orleans, or like a San Francisco, or like a Kansas City, which really have had no change. Can you imagine? Even an experienced guy like Belichick, look all the guys he lost. And now you got to roll right back into it. But for a guy like Matt Rule, it's going to be a difficult early start and most likely freshman year with the Panthers.
Well, and I think that's a good point, because the Saints have a leg up, right? The veteran presence, guys who know the playbook, and more of what they did in the offseason, right, Bobby? And you and I talked about this as well, how they re-signed key players. And that was the most important thing, making sure the core guys who are major contributors stayed with the team.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Kyle, you and I touched on it, even during free agency and leading up to free agency, all the exact points that you just made, Mike, that we felt that the teams that were able to keep their veteran cores together, especially when you have a talented core such as New Orleans, San Francisco, and Kansas City, would have the major advantage, particularly early on into the season. And I know we'll get into the rookies in a minute. Do you think, Mike, that the rookies, particularly the undrafted free agents out of college, are going to be at a significant disadvantage coming in?
Yes, I think it'll be a disadvantage. And even the numbers for the Saints weren't as many as we've seen in other years. And they were pretty specific. And Sean had sort of explained that we're looking for the top-rated players that we had at certain positions to come in to try to help us. But it's part of an article I'll do next week, is that while some coaches look at things in the microscope, Sean also looks through the telescope. Mm-hmm. He's looking at in the future of building not only what he has in a 53-man roster, but also for a developmental team. And he, he's very good at that, of sort of piecing that together. And it's something he has sort of shared throughout the years and telling us how he does things to look at it. A lot of veteran coaches at the end would say, you know what, I'm keeping the veteran. Rookie, I'll try to slide him on developmental. Look what happened last year.
Right.
His team went to the NFC Championship game. Shai Tuttle, rookie free agent, made this team. Deontay Harris not only made this team, he goes to the Pro Bowl as a return man, and I think you'll see a little bit more use of him as a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You look across the board, little Jordan Humphrey made this team, undrafted free agent. And so on and on, even Ethan Greenrich made this team as a reserve offensive guard. He was an undrafted free agent.
Right.
Everybody last year, I want my team back. Well, you can't get it back. You're going to get bits and pieces of it back. But they had 19 new football players on that 53-man squad. That tells me Sean's just not concentrating on the microscope. He was looking through the telescope to see also the future. This year, I think that while the telescope may not look straight up, it'll be halfway. And I think the hardest thing is to gauge that player. And I've talked to a couple of assistants about it. Hardest thing is, if these practices are limited, am I doing that guy justice? Am I doing him his just due by looking at him in practice, and then all of a sudden he catches a fire? I go back to 2006, first week of practice. No one would have thought Marcus Colston would have been the player he was.
Right.
He passes, he didn't run good routes. Man, we were sweating it out in Mississippi. We were just trying to survive as the media, much less as a player. And it took week 2 for Marcus to kind of catch stride as a player. All of a sudden, he's making the plays. So I think it's you trying to do the right thing with the player, but I don't know that you'll have as many. But I think Sean will take a long look at trying to develop that developmental team, which he knows is important because that's part of your future out there. And so it's a interesting look. Nobody's walked down this football aisle before.
Right.
So, there is no script. You got to just look at, your lion eyes sometimes fool you.
Right.
So to speak, you got to go with your gut feeling and what you see in practice. Because I think most people watching practice would have said Emmanuel Butler makes the 53-man roster and Humphrey makes the developmental squad.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the case. The case. Sean saw something in little Jordan that he felt, hey, listen, I want him on the 53-man squad. And he was able to get Butler through developmental and not lose him throughout the process.
Yeah, and I think we touched on that as well last week, right, Bob? Think about that. Emmanuel Butler was the camp darling, right? And everybody thought, for sure that he was the next coming of Marcus Colston. But that last game kind of showed you the jitters that he had out on the field. He wasn't going to be reliable in the long term for the Saints. And the Saints had a project like that named Brandon Coleman. So, and you don't want to keep on having that type of repeat of performance, right? So that's a good point. And think about this, Mike, and I think you kind of elaborated on that with us when we were chatting, that some of these guys that are undrafted free agents are pretty much undrafted, but they will be contributing in other areas. Where do you see that? Is it mostly special teams? Is it
special teams
squad or what?
Special teams. You hit it. Any undrafted free agent, and if they come to me for advice, my first thing is get to be buddies with the special teams coach, because he is your ticket to make the 53-man roster. We look at Josh Hill. When Josh came out, we saw at times he was an okay receiver, wasn't great, we could see he was a big man who could run block well. What we saw was special teams. JT Gray, man, I want to get lined up against him one-on-one. He wasn't a great cover guy, but then when you watched him on special teams, he would make the play. First guy down there, he would make the play. Justin Hardy, he told me the story when he was with the Texans that, he was making the switch from wide receiver to defensive back. And that, he was playing special teams, but he said, it's all sort of new. You got to learn new techniques on how to play special teams. It's just not go down there and run and go get the guy with the ball. You got to kind of learn how to maneuver a little bit. And the Saints saw it in Justin. They saw something in him in the practices they had of how good of a special teams player he was, and they went out and get him. Now, everybody takes credit for Taysom Hill, but I got a chance to sit with Taysom last year. He comes to our Bayou benefit banquet for the high school kids, and he tells me, hey, is that guy who's got hair the same color as you? It was the old man. He went to Sean and said, hey, listen, I want him to play on special teams. He's the fastest guy we got. Let's give him a shot at it. Sean sort of tapped the brake a little bit. Man, I don't know about that. We got some packages offensively. He said, no, let's give him a shot on special teams. It all worked out, didn't it? So you never know, but that special teams door and the key to it is being on that squad. That gets you a shot to make it. And we see it time and time again on a regular squad. JT Gray is not making the 53-man roster because of his coverage skills, but he made it because he's not a good special teamer. He's an upper-level special teams guy.
Yeah, well, upper level, he made the Pro Bowl. The guy has really done significant contributions on the special teamers. Bob, what are your thoughts?
Hey, well, and there's a lot, tons into what Mike was saying. You look back even on other NFL teams, as everybody knows who's known me for a while. I also grew up a fan of the Denver Elways, and Terrell Davis caught his coach's attention. He was a day away from quitting before he got cut, and he made a couple big time special teams play against the San Francisco 49ers in a Tokyo game that caught the attention of coaches, and then the rest is Hall of Fame history. So like Mike, I'll be interested to see, depending on what happens with the preseason. Obviously, these guys are going to have to make their mark on special teams. They'll have opportunities to make splashes on regular offensive or defensive snaps too. But like Mike pointed out, and like Kyle, they're not going to make the team that way. We have seen camp darlings in the past, at various positions that we were all surprised that didn't make the 53-man roster, because we'd see them in preseason practices or during preseason games, and we'd say, well, they played well offensively or defensively. Well, we didn't see them show up on special teams though. And the back portion of these NFL rosters, they're your backbones of your special teams unit. You're not going to see, ideally, you're not going to see a fourth or fifth string wide receiver make much of a contribution during regular season games, barring catastrophic injury to a specific unit. But those guys are going to be the keys to how well your special teams plays. And as we've seen with the Saints, even as recently as 2016, when they lost 3 or 4 games because of special teams solely, that could cost you a playoff spot or a division title.
Sure. One of the things, guys, to think about, last year, Dwayne Washington making this team, he made it on special teams.
Sure did.
And he allowed the Saints to keep an extra player. They got rid of a linebacker because they were convinced Dwayne Washington was that good of a special teams player. So you opened up a roster spot here. And it's going to be interesting how you juggle this too, because I know you can say all the right things in April and May. That, Taysom's not going to be as involved on special teams. Maybe not as involved. But, come on. During the regular season, I'm learning about winning games. Man, Taysom Hill's playing special teams. Man, you can tell me that, but, I can sell it too. I ain't buying it.
Right.
And I'm not buying it in May. So don't try to sell it to me in September. We all know he's one of the top special teams players they have. And I think the reality is you didn't bring Jameis Winston in just to watch and hold a clipboard. Come on. There's a reality check there, guys.
Yeah.
They didn't bring him here just to watch. Taysom's going to do the exact same thing he's done the last 2 years. He's going to play on special teams. He's going to be that whatever. Sean used to tease all the time about he was an RPO quarterback, and I said, RPO, where's the pass? And he says, okay, he's the RRO quarterback, run out for quarterback.
Yeah.
So he's going to play that little slot receiver, play a little running back. We'll see what Troutman, can he take over some of those duties of playing that kind of slot tight end, flex tight end. But Taysom's gonna have the ball, but he's gonna be on special teams. That's a reality. That I can say it in April and May. That doesn't mean anything when you pump those balls up for real in September, because they paying me to win. Right.
All right. Well, guys, we have our special guest, our second special guest other than you, Mike, and that is Saints rookie cornerback, Mr. Keith Washington. Welcome to the Who Dat Nation, Keith. How you doing?
Good. Appreciate you guys for having me.
All right, man. Look, where are you right now? Are you in Alabama? Are you in
I'm in
West Virginia?
I'm in Montgomery, Alabama right now.
Montgomery. All right. Good stuff, man. I spent some time in Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, look, man, welcome to Who Dat Nation. You've been pretty good at working with the media and being very responsive. We appreciate you joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man, like country kid from the South. Grew up in a football family. Dad played a little bit in the NFL. Everybody loves sports. Grandma, grandpa, everybody watch sports, man. So I just kind of grew up playing basketball, football. I actually played quarterback through high school and little league.
Really?
Yeah, and then got to college first year, switching over to the defense side of the ball, and just kind of took my career from there.
Wow. So you went from quarterback to defense. You just heard Mike Detillier. You need to meet Mike when you finally get to training camp, because Mike is the one who's going to be your historian and tell you all the things, what to do and what not to say to Sean Payton, right?
And I don't know about that. Sean get on me too.
All right, Bob, take it away, babe.
Keith, thank you so much for taking some time out to join us. You might want to let Coach Payton know that you played a little quarterback in high school. Maybe he'll throw a couple offensive packages your direction too. But we are definitely excited to have you in the cornerback room and the Saints secondary.
Hey, Kyle, I can't hear Bob.
Oh, you couldn't hear him? Okay, he said he's excited that you are with the team and you're in the secondary.
Oh, okay. Tell him appreciate that, man. I just it's a blessing just to be a part of a great organization, great team like the New Orleans Saints, and I look forward to the opportunity, and all out there on that field to make that team and become a Saint, man.
Okay.
Now, Keith, I know that there were a lot of teams interested in you, before you signed with New Orleans. Who were your last couple choices, and why did you ultimately choose New Orleans?
So he wants to know, why did you choose New Orleans? You had other options out there.
Of course, Coach Glenn hit me up, and he called me, and I felt like New Orleans was a great organization. Like I said before, they got a bunch of talented guys, a bunch of veterans to learn from. I feel like this was the best fit for me and best place to earn a spot early, and get a chance to prove myself. So I look forward to doing.
Well, good. Mike, do you have any questions for Keith?
Keith, two quick questions. One, how much time did you spend on special teams at Washington and also at West Virginia? And what's the one thing you worked on the most once the season was over for you at West Virginia?
I spent a lot of time on special teams. Going in at Michigan, that was the first ticket on the field. Running down on kickoff, being a corner on the punt team, and even gunner. So I spent a lot of time on special teams and transitioned over to West Virginia. Once I became, a starter in the secondary, they kind of limited me a little bit as far as special teams wise. But man, that's the key part of the game. So I'm involved in every facet of that special teams. And then a lot of things that I worked on once I left West Virginia, just technique wise, man, I got to work on technique, getting off blocks, and just becoming a better corner overall.
Well, look like you play the position pretty aggressively. That's the best word I can say, right? So when people in the Who Dat Nation are going to take a look at your background, they're going to take a look at you during training camp. What can they expect from Keith Washington? What type of player are they going to see?
You're gonna see a guy that's gonna go balls to the wall, every play. And then I'm gonna be a guy that's gonna make time to make plays. Looking back on my film and stuff at West Virginia and through my career, I made a lot of plays in crunch time situations in the game. So I see myself as a corner, a tall corner, that can match up with a lot of people, run with anybody, and make the ball when it's in the air.
All right. Well, good. We need some guys like that, not afraid to hold down guys like Ridley and Julio Jones and Mike Evans and those guys. So you got some pretty tall orders to kind of fill there. You got some love here from Sheila Cole Davis. She's sending some love from Texas. You know,
Yes,
Sheila?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's my family. That's my family from Texas. I originally I'm from down south, a little bit south side. That's
All right. Good, good. Okay, Mike, can you have him to understand what he's going to expect from Sean Payton?
Well, one of the things with Sean is he lets his assistant coaches be the head coach of that particular unit. And you got a great one in Aaron Glenn.
Yeah.
It's a guy who's been a double-digit player in the NFL, and you got to look down at him. I mean, because he's 5'8" 3/4. He's not a real tall guy, but you're talking about a guy that knows the business, knows the game, and he can teach it well. And I think that's so important because in any business you in, if you got a guy that has done it before, you pay more attention. Some guys maybe coach 15 years, never played. Have a guy that's played 15 years at that position. You playing? No, that guy is really your head coach. No, Sean oversees everything, but the one thing he does great job with, he lets his assistant coaches coach their units. So your head coach is Aaron Glenn. That's your guy.
Now, you had some time on the phone with him. I know you haven't been able to meet him. Have you guys done any type of Zoom calls or anything to that nature?
We just most of the time been over the phone calls and group messages and things like that. I believe starting up next week we'll start some Zoom calls and stuff like that. But yeah, man, that was a big part of the reason why I chose to be a New Orleans Saint. Coach Glenn just talked to me and explained how he can develop me into a better corner and so that was one of the things.
Good stuff. Bob, are you back on the stream, buddy?
Yeah, I hope you guys can hear me. I think it was probably on my end. But Keith, playing in the Big 12, you had a chance to match up against some really good receivers. TCU's Rigor, CD Lamb, Denzel Mims, just to ring a couple bells. How did you alter your approach against each individual receiver, or did you feel pretty confident in your all-around game to go up against them and shut them down?
Man, there's some great guys that you just named right there, some dogs in that league. But as far as altering my approach, I kept the same approach no matter who I was playing. Of course, if we're getting ready to play Jalen Reagor and TCU, or a big name guy like that, it's a little bit different. But at the same time, I study all the receivers the same way, and I got confidence in myself and my ability to match up with anybody, you got to play cornerback, especially like the Big 12 and the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. How was it playing against Rager, man? You saw him. He went #1 to Philadelphia Eagles. But like Bob said, you had other big names that you played against. Do you feel as though your talents were kind of overlooked a little bit at this juncture? Or are you okay where you are right now and say, oh, I just have a chance to be able to prove myself?
Oh man, I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. Of course, I feel like I matched up good against those guys that you just named. And the tape shows it. But that's something I can't control, and it's in the past. Only thing I'm looking forward to right now is just stepping on that field as a Saint and proving myself all over again.
Okay. Well, one of our fans, John Smith, and he's going to be one of your fans too. He's a good guy. John says, who do you compare your game to?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Got a bunch of guys that I look up to, like Tyrann Mathieu. But one guy I like to compare myself to, and I want to be like, is Richard Sherman.
Wow.
Tall corner. Match up, like I said, you can match up with anybody, and he's been doing it for a long time, and he make plays on the ball. So hopefully I can get this NFL career into something like Richard Sherman.
All right, cool. Bob, any further questions?
Yeah, kind of to hop on that. Keith, one of the things that impressed me most, not only when I watched your film, but I'm a big fan of the Mountaineers in general. You have terrific man-to-man coverage skills, but I noticed that you have outstanding range when you're in off-the-ball coverage, almost like a natural safety. Is there a certain type of coverage that you feel more comfortable in than another?
At Michigan, it's primarily man-to-man. First year at West Virginia and junior college, it was, and then this past year, we out of quarters, cover. I did it all throughout college, and I'm comfortable playing it all.
All right.
Good answer. Coach Glenn is going to like that one.
Yeah. Mike, any questions for Keith?
Keith, one of the things, we had Richard Sherman at one of our camps, and one of the things I asked him, who gives you the most trouble as a corner? And he said, it's not the big guys. He said, it's the little guys, smaller guys, quickness. He said, they give me, because of my size and because of the way I'm sort of built, they give me more trouble than a bigger receiver. Now, most corners, people outside the cornerback world, they would say, oh, man, that big, tall receiver, he gives me more trouble, that he should give him more. But it's really the smaller guys, right? Because those guys have a way of kind of shifting their bodies a little bit away. Well, that bigger guy is going to take him a little bit longer, and you can get your hands on him in the first 5 yards. Well, that little guy, you might not get your hands on him.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That's when it just come down to film study, knowing where your help gonna be at as a defensive back, and just trusting your teammates and trusting your coaches, and then you just got to make a play, man. At the end of the day, it's you versus the guy in front of you.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Keith, tell us a little bit personal stuff about you, your family. You said you kind of had some family in Texas, Alabama. Have you been to New Orleans ever?
Oh yes, I've been. I think I went to New Orleans way back a long time ago for an AAU basketball tournament, but I probably haven't been to New Orleans in 8+ years. But yeah, man, I got family in West Texas, and in Ville Platte, Louisiana, Baton Rouge.
Ville Platte, man, I know.
Yeah,
Ville Platte's kind of in my side of the country there.
Yeah, that's Mike's side, man. I'm telling you, get to know Mike.
A lot of people don't know. I was born in Monroe, Louisiana.
Yeah.
So,
got a lot
so you are Louisianan at heart. It's in your blood. All right. Well, good stuff, man.
Who'd you grow up for? Who'd you root for growing up, Keith? What teams? What players?
That's a good question.
I was a Saints fan growing up, a Saints and a Colts fan. My grandpa used to have me watching Peyton Manning, and we used to watch Drew Brees on Sunday. So that was our little thing, watching NFL on Sunday.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
And he's making loads of friends.
He sure is. Paul T. Yo, Keith, what cornerback in the NFL do you try to replicate? I think you already said that. Richard Sherman. John said, are you looking forward to playing Carolina and seeing Will Greer?
Yeah, Willie G. That's my guy. Yeah, man, I look forward to matching up against Will Greer. And then, see my other teammate, Ken Robinson, who just got drafted to the Patriots too. So I look forward to matching up with them.
And your auntie says she loves you. So you got a lot of love, man. You got a lot of love. We appreciate you being with us as well, man. Any last questions, Bob or Mike?
No, Keith, I just want to wish you the best of luck. And the one thing I'll tell you is that Coach Payton, with free agent players, it don't matter once you get to camp. He treats everybody the same, and the eye in the sky don't lie. That's how he grades people. So, man, listen, just do your best, and you're going to have a fair shot here, because I really believe they are looking for a young corner, a young cornerback that can come in and play. And if you can help on special teams, you might get that ticket punched right to that 53-man roster.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
Bob?
Yeah, Keith, like I said, I've always been a fan of West Virginia, so I got a close-up view of some of your games, and definitely love what you're going to bring to the Saints. I can't wait to see you in that fleur-de-lis helmet. But like Mike said, you're going to have a real shot, and you're a member of the Who Dat family. So before you go, tell the New Orleans Saints fans exactly what they're going to get out of Keith Washington II in training camp.
Man, you're going to get a guy that's going to go hard, put everything on the line and going to make plays, man. Just trying to be a part of
it. All right. Well, look, man, Keith, we wish you a lot of luck, but we are here rooting for you. If you, as well as your representatives, need anything from us with the Saintsnews Network, either with myself, Mike Detillier, Bob Rose, or John Hendricks, please let us know, man. And Who Dat, baby. Welcome to the Who Dat Nation.
Sir, Who Dat. Appreciate you.
Who Dat. Thank you, brother.
All right. Man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right, guys. That is Mr. Keith Washington. And Keith got a lot of love, man. Look at all the people from Louisiana giving him some love. So that's really good to see that kid. Mike, when you were doing your evaluation, did you have Keith as one of those guys that you saw in the draft, or more teetering along the undrafted free agent side?
No, I thought he was going to be an undrafted free agent. I knew that was going to be a big class of receivers. And when that happens, it swings the other big class down. And that other big class is corners. Because normally when you look at the drafts the last 5 years, and I'll keep up with it closely, when there's a big run on defensive backs, I do more write-ups on corners, okay? Because I know those guys are going to get picked. This year, man, once I started doing all those write-ups on wide receivers, I was like, man, when is this going to end? Because, I could have done 69 instead of 49. So I knew a guy like Keith was going to get pushed back a bit on it. And the fact that I think, too, you got older scouts in this league that look at him and say, okay, he goes to Michigan. Then he goes the JUCO route. Then he goes to West Virginia. Okay. And so he was a good player. He's going to need some development. Okay, we're going to get him after the draft. And one of the things Coach Payton explained to Zach Streif and I was that we have a list of about 5 to 7 guys that as soon as the draft is over, and who knows, maybe even a little bit before, but you got to stretch the rubber band. Nobody plays exactly by the rules.
Right.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So to speak, on that end, come on. I get it. I've been in this business a long time. I know how it works. Keith was one of the guys that they went after pretty quickly in that time frame, just like Marquez Callaway. They were after him very, very quickly. Joe Bocci from Michigan State, very quickly they were after him. Throckmorton, same way. They were real high on their board. They thought they would probably drop and be free agents. And then, okay, let's make them an offer and let's go try to get the maximum amount of money toward them. And if we got any more money, we'll try to get after some more. And the thought was maybe they might sign 9 to 10. And that got stretched a little bit, even a little bit more. But Keith was one of the guys that you could tell, not that we were told ahead of time, but how quickly he came aboard. That was a situation. Sean said, hey, listen, let's get on the board. We can get him in here. We think he's got a shot. And even if it's on developmental, we got a spot there too. And those guys are the future of your team. Without a developmental league, that has to be something the NFL has to pay closer attention to, because no XFL now. Vince is 86, that babe, right out of there.
Yeah.
So you can start to see already the remnants of what might be your developmental team, what might be that team, them going after 2 wide receivers in Juwan Johnson, Marquez Callaway, and a Joe Bocci, who I think's actually got a shot to make the 53-man roster.
Yeah,
and Adrian Mcgee and a Throckmorton.
Yeah.
Keith Washington. Those type guys that already, and Tommy Stevens, because without something out of the ordinary happening, Stevens is going to be that on the developmental squad and what he could do. Even despite the fact he has seen more action on offense as a receiver, as a flex tight end and running back than what Taysom Hill did at BYU. Taysom was a quarterback. The issue with Taysom was keeping him healthy. And that's the crazy part about the NFL, is that Taysom had a wrist, thumb injury, but he never missed any games. And he missed every year. He got knocked out at BYU with a season-ending injury. So you can see that role for Stevens somewhere down the line, and you can see how they're trying to build this developmental team. And like I say, it's part of an article I'm going to do next week, but I think it's interesting the way Sean is starting to set this up. And there were a couple other players they didn't get that he was coveting. And so he'll keep a close eye on that too, on how they get cut and where they end up.
Yeah. And Bob, I think you and I kind of chatted about these undrafted free agents, and it seems as though, and Mike, you can probably correct me if I'm off, man, but it seems as though this year there's a lot of good talent, especially along the line. When you think about Throckmorton, you think, and I know he's not as athletic as most of those guys, but you got Steckler as well,
Adrian Mcgee.
Yeah, exactly. And it just seems like these guys, in listening to them in the press conference with the local media, it just seems like they are anxious to get there, anxious to be able to show and prove people are wrong. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with you. And I've heard a couple of the interviews from these guys, from these undrafted guys this year, Keith included. And they just they, not in a disrespectful way, but they very much have a chip on their shoulder. And they're looking forward to coming in and showing these other NFL teams, hey, you guys missed the boat. You should have drafted me when you had the opportunity. And these guys, and this is what I've always liked about the Saints, and just as Mike has pointed out a couple of times tonight, Sean Payton, more so than probably any other NFL coach I can think of, has a very open mind when it comes to these undrafted guys. He doesn't care how you got here. Now that you're here, you're on equal playing ground, equal footing as everybody else. And that's why we've seen the Saints have so much success with so many undrafted guys since Payton came to New Orleans in 2006. Keith Washington, Tino Ellis, another guy I really like, couple of the linemen that you guys named and the receivers along with Bocce at linebacker. These guys are all going to have legitimate shots to make the team and, you know, oust a veteran or two, or at the very least have a chance for the practice squad. And hey, if you're on the practice squad, your foot's in the door, you're in the show. All you need to do is continue hard work, and you'll get yourself on that field.
Wow, interesting.
You know,
Mike?
one of the things this year is because of events out of their control, you had a lot more time to look at film on a player. It's not a highlight reel film, okay? It's different. You know, you're getting to watch a lot of film on a particular player, because what the Saints would do every year, and they would pick probably 10 or 12 guys that were borderline guys that they thought couldn't be picked or would slide right into the free agent category, and they'd bring them in. And Sean explained to us one of the things he wanted to do was have some familiarity with the team. You're meeting the head coach, you're meeting the general manager, you're meeting your position coach, you're seeing other guys at that position on your team. And so if you don't get picked, you have a relationship already with them that's unique. It's not like Zoom or Skype or anything else that you're on. You have that relationship with that player because he's walked on that ground with you and he's talked to you. You see him eye to eye. And it's not because you can say, a coach can say, oh, I watch film. How much film? You're like, come on, they got 45, 50 corners. Okay, you can't watch film on all that. Okay, because you're busy in the fall. You're busy concentrating on your games. You're not watching college football. You might watch a snippet of it. And I think the guys who had the advantage this year, and you look at the numbers, so many SEC players. Well, you know why? A lot of those games, the SEC were playing New Year's Eve games, New Year's Day games, afterwards, national championship games, the Oklahoma players, the Clemson players, okay, Ohio State players, LSU. There's a reason you saw them. You saw them.
Yeah,
You're not watching West Virginia in November. Nothing against West Virginia, but you're not watching Brigham Young. You're not watching Utah State. You're not watching TCU. No, you have a job to do. You might watch a highlight reel or some YouTube deal of them, but you're not watching film of them. This year was different. Those coaches were able to watch a lot of film on that player and how they fit. It's a big difference. And I guess looking at it short kind of look at and then a long look at it. And so I think they were specific on certain players that they had a great interest in and ended up with this type class. And it was different than in years past. Totally, totally different because you didn't have that part of it. And also, too, you look at players, I see, you know, because I've said this, because I've watched him for 4 years in Throckmorton, in that you work him out, you come away saying, how did he play 4 years as a starter at Oregon? He's not the most athletic guy. Just watch him play. Ain't nobody beats him. You know, he's not a great workout athlete. He's a football player. That's a difference.
Right.
Because people fall in love with the athlete first. I don't care. It's one of the things I learned real quickly in the scouting business. In that people fall in love with the athlete. You see it on the hoof and say, man, that guy's big and he's fast. He can play. I've had a lot of big and fast guys that can't play worth a lick. And then you see some of the other guys. First time I ever saw Willie Rofe at Louisiana Tech, and the way Willie would walk, it was almost like Fred Sanford. You know, he had the leg, you know, and Willie was built like a table. And then when it's true. He was built like a table. But he kind of has that walk like Fred Sanford did. And then when you watch him play, you were like, wow, man, that guy, you know, he's a real athlete, but he can play football. And like Calvin can do it. This year, one of the great stories was Adrian Mcgee at LSU. And in talking to Coach O about him, he was like, Mike, man, you know, he's a big man. He can move his feet. He got his weight down, and he's a multiple position player. So they moved him to the guard spot because they all thought Ed Ingram was going to come back. 2 years ago, Ed Ingram was the best offensive lineman on LSU's team. He was better than Sadiq Charles as a freshman. He was better than him. Sadiq gets suspended, has some issues off the field, comes back. I had a big belief, others too, around the team. And that's Ed Ingram's job. Adrian Mcgee told him, hey, y'all forgot to send me that memo. You ain't beating me out. And Ed Ingram watched. He wasn't starting. So then Sadiq gets suspended. Who plays left tackle? Adrian Mcgee. And so that was a great story with Mcgee, who I think a lot of people looked at and said, maybe he underachieved a little bit. He ain't underachieved this year. You look at that big guy, man, he was plowing open some holes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire or whoever was running the ball, and also being a great pass protector. So you got multiple position guys here.
Right.
Rita Throckmorton, who started 4 positions in 1 year. Man, you ain't Al Bundy. You ain't playing on the high school field.
Right.
This ain't in your backyard. That's difficult to start at 4 spots in 1 year. Man, I'm just telling you, got to be one smart dude to do that. And you got to be technically sound and understand what you have to do on every play. Not 10%, not 20, not 30, every play. Because you know what? That star quarterback who got picked 6th in the draft, he's sitting right behind you. And if we lose him, we ain't playing in the Rose Bowl.
Right.
We might be playing in the Holiday Bowl instead,
Hawaii Bowl or something. Yeah. But you bring up some good points, Mike. The versatility of most of those guys along the line and being where we've seen a guy like Clemente in the past. That's where he thrived, for New Orleans when they needed to play him at guard sometimes, at center sometimes, whatever he needed to do. You got a guy like Mcgee where I'm still trying to figure out what happened, why the slip. And he mentioned kind of briefly that there were some rumblings about him, some negative stories or whatever that came out. What was he talking about? Because I didn't hear.
I think his work ethic was questioned earlier in his career.
Okay,
that was the deal of maybe the right button being pushed. And
but he played on a national championship team. I don't get that.
I get it. But listen, sometimes that stays with you, Kyle. It really does. You can't lose it. It's like a scar. You can't get rid of it,
right? No
matter what. And I think with Adrian, he matured physically, mentally. He became the responsible guy. And for you to play left tackle and also guard, man, you got to know what you're doing.
Right.
Because all I know is if I don't see Sadiq Charles out there, that's where I'm attacking. I'm going after him. Adrian Mcgee held his own. And he kept Ingram on the bench. Okay, so, yeah, he might not have been the guy earlier in his career. But they got a lot of guys playing in this league exactly like him. Exactly. Not everybody matures at 18 or 19 years old. Sometimes it's a little bit later, and sometimes it's opportunity. He got that opportunity because of the fact that Ingram was not brought back to start the season. And so he was given that role. Okay, before the season started, if I'd have told you Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be the first running back selected, you'd put me in the straitjacket. No one
saw that one coming.
No
right?
one saw it coming. Not even people at LSU saw it coming. So at the end of the year, it was funny. We did a banquet, Coach O and I, and he walks in. He says, "Hey," he said, "I really think Clyde might go in round 1." He said, "I had a couple of teams tell me that." And so he told me who the 2 guys were that told him. I was like, "Coach, it's interesting. I think he'll go in round 2." He's like, "Man, Mike, I don't, So, it gets down to the 31st pick. And Zach and I are talking. He was like, Mike, I remember you always saying that Andy Reid has never picked a running back in round 1 in his entire life with the Eagles or with the Chiefs. And I said, you know what? He might break the trend here. He might do it. There was no running back picked, but I didn't think it would be Clyde. I thought he probably would go with DeAndre Swift, who they had spent a lot of time with. And all of a sudden, perfect fit for Clyde. But think about before the season, everybody wanted to see Emory. Everybody wanted to see Tyrus Davis-Jones. Everybody, Chris Curry. That's all Coach O talks about. Who beat him out? That little 5'7" running back. And he ends up being the only running back to go in round 1. That goes to show Andy Reid had an open mind about Clyde and the fact that maybe he wasn't super productive earlier in his career because he didn't get that chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to Coach O. One of the things he's told me, Mike, you know what you're really going to miss from him? One, he's a really good pass blocker. No matter, he said, what this guy says on ESPN, you watched him a lot more than he's ever watched him, talking about he needs to be a better pass protector. How many times you pointed that out? He catches that guy in the middle, but he's such a great route runner. Such a great route runner.
And he
spins you like a top, so you're like corkscrewed into the ground, and he goes left and right on you. You look at the Clemson game, he catches a pass on the sidelines. Man, that Clemson game, I got him. I got him. Yeah, you got him. And he's 6 yards downfield. So a lot of times that stays with a player. Maybe a negativity does stay with him a little bit longer than most. And I think that's what Adrian was bringing up, that earlier in his career, he had that label on him, and it was hard to shake, despite the fact he did a great job in 2019 for LSU.
Good stuff, Mike. All right. John Smith wants to know who has the best career of this year's rookie running backs. What's your opinion there, Mike and Bob?
In 2020?
Yeah. I guess that's what he's asking. In 2020, which rookie running back is going to have their best year?
Well, I think Clyde is not going to be given the football 250 times at Kansas City. They're going to split time with him. Who's going to get the opening to be the star guy? Maybe somebody goes down to an injury, So in that part, I always thought DeAndre Swift was ready for the NFL, because of his receiving skills. He was a good edge runner. He ran hard inside when they gave him that opportunity. But it's which one of the backs are going to get that chance. And I think running back has a better chance to play in the new world we living in than any other position. Because, man, listen, if you're an offensive lineman, it's going to be hard for you to get in there to play. It's going to be hard in the secondary because of all the calls you need to get. Designated pass rusher, there's only a handful of them anyway to begin with. Receiver, you got to learn how to run routes, and guess what? Those defensive backs know how to catch you. They know how to reroute you. But a running back, if it's Clyde, if it's Swift, if it's J.K. Dobbins, Taylor, Jonathan Taylor, even though he might have to, swing some time with Marlon Mack in Indy, which one of those guys gets that chance to be the star guy? And I think there'll be a couple of 3 really good rookie running backs this year.
Okay. All right, Bob.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I think Clyde is going to be an absolutely outstanding fit in Andy Reid's offense in Kansas City. Like Mike, you pointed out, it all depends on the opportunities you're going to get, but also the offensive system that you're going to fit in. At Michael Sachs, I saw your comment. J.K. Dobbins was my favorite back in the draft too, but I really, you look at the situation that DeAndre Swift landed in, going at number 35 overall to the Lions. The Lions need a running support to take a little bit of pressure off Matthew Stafford finally. And Swift got game. He's a good runner between the tackles. He has a great burst in the open field, and I think he's a terrific receiver too. Dobbins won't get as much of an opportunity going to Baltimore, with the system that they have. He'll see his touches, and he'll be able to showcase his open field ability. But I don't think, just like you were saying, Mike, I don't think Dobbins is going to get the same kind of opportunities early on with Baltimore that Swift is going to get with Detroit, or
Clyde.
Or Clyde's going to get in Kansas City.
Only thing with Dobbins is he's a body snatcher. And I don't like to see that with a running back. He catches everything up against his body.
Yeah.
And remember the quarterfinal game, 2 passes. Man, that's going to stick with him a long time. That's right in his hands.
Yeah.
You got to make those plays. But in watching JK over the years, he's a great back. He's a speed back, but he's got that lower body power to break through. But everything is right up against the chest. Man, for me, he's got to work on that. And that's something you can get better. To be honest with you, we teased Travis Etienne this offseason. You got to catch the ball. No, Travis was like almost the ball had some kind of, illness or sickness. But now, you can work at that. You can work at getting better at that. Travis has turned out to be a pretty good receiver coming out the backfield, but he wasn't at first. Because his deal was, I just want to see the field and get up the field with it. As a running back, getting him out the backfield, a lot of times your back or half of your back is turned, making that catch. And so he felt uncomfortable. So Billy Rickman, who's an old friend of mine, former Louisiana Tech All-American, he does talk show out in Lafayette. He had told me that, man, get on the field and work with somebody. You can learn how to catch the ball. Learn how to catch it with your hands. And Travis, that's what he did. He went out and he worked with someone to help him learn how to catch the ball better. And that's something JK is going to have to do. Also, look at Fournette. And we would tease Leonard, but man, you couldn't catch a cold if you were naked in Russia. But now, look at what Fournette did last year. He was just a couple catches less than Kamara. I think there were only 3, maybe 4 running backs that had more receptions than Leonard Fournette. And so, that all comes into play. Dobbins is a home run hitter, but that's one of the areas like Leonard and like Etienne that they're going to need to work on catching the ball, catching it cleaner. Because in the NFL, you let that ball get close to you, they pop you. The ball's coming out.
Yeah.
Either it's a fumble or the ball's incomplete. It's a drop.
Yeah, you're in trouble. All right. Wow, take this one from John. Can the Saints use another veteran cornerback?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah, look, and I don't know about better. Well, at this stage of the game, it's obviously going to be a veteran because the draft is over. And we had Keith Washington on a little bit ago. I really do love his game. And I like Tino Ellis a lot out of West Virginia, or out of Maryland too, excuse me. But they're going to be hard pressed to really make the top 3 or 4 spots as undrafted free agents. So yeah, I personally would love to see them bring in another veteran cornerback. Look, Eli Apple is still out on the market, and I would love to see them bring Eli Apple back in on a relatively team-friendly deal. Hell, they were able to do it with PJ Williams. Apple fits the criteria that we were talking about earlier. He knows the Saints defensive system. He knows Dennis Allen's play call, defensive scheme and terminology. So he's not going to have to learn anything new. Apple had one heck of a start to the 2019 season before he before he did injure his knee, and was slowed down the stretch, and then he really started to struggle with his confidence. There are a couple other veteran cornerbacks out there that I think would make nice contributors too. But I've been pounding the table for weeks now saying I want him to bring Eli Apple back. The cornerback depth scares the heck out of me. Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins are as good as you get as a starting duo. And I know, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is outstanding in the slot, where we'll probably see a lot of them this year. But the number 3 cornerback spot for this team, whether it's PJ Williams or Patrick Robinson, which have to be your 2 favorites at this point because they're veterans, I don't feel comfortable with either one of them in that role.
Well, it's more depth than most teams have. You look at some of these teams and you like, am I going into the season with those guys? It's one of those deals. And I hate to say this, but we have so many camps down here, And I try to tell some of the receivers, man, do you play cornerback? Oh, no, sir. I don't play on defense. I'm just a receiver. Man, listen, you can make a lot of money playing cornerback. Now, it's different, and the techniques are a little bit different. But, again, there's a shortage of them with 32 teams. Most teams are going to play 4 corners in a game.
Right.
Play 4 corners.
Right.
Okay. And Chauncey impressed me last year with what he could do. But what PJ did real well was when they put him in the nickel as a safety. And that's where I thought he played his best football. Who has a lot of pressure this year to play? Because, man, listen, we paying you now, if you're the Saints, is Patrick Robinson. Okay, we kept you, we paying you. You got to step up your game here. But it's a spot that I think what you brought up, Bob, is I think is true for every team. Man, that if I could get me another corner and I could get me a veteran corner, but at this stage, all of them have a little bit of a score on them, or 2 scores or 3. Something's maybe not right with them. And there's a reason we're with May 6th today, and they're unsigned in a league that you're on your hands and your knees begging for a corner. There's a reason that guy's out there. There's a reason he's out there. That might be financial to a certain extent, but I think a lot of it is, man, you got to convince me, and I can't bring him in to work him out. Maybe they had an injury. I can't bring him out to work him out at this stage. It puts you in a difficult position. But, man, I look at the Saints. I look at the Vikings. Man, look at that cornerback. And they sort of wiped out everything cornerback-wise.
Yeah,
who's going to play cornerback there for them?
Yeah.
You got some issues there. But we heard it before the Saints played the Vikings in the playoff game. One of their executives said, you know what, this is a season of we're not rebuilding, but we sort of reloading the gun. And some of it is going to be along our defensive line and in the secondary. And sure enough, man, they wiped out that cornerback group almost completely because of the money that some of them were owed. And then, Everson Griffin's a good football player and still is. Had some issues that you would have to deal with. But if that corner's out there, if it's Eli Apple or whoever, there's a reason they're still out there.
Well, John has a question. He said, how about Prince? Yeah. From the Giants.
Well, Prince, he got a lot of W-2s. He's bounced around this league all over the place. And, man, he's a big, tall corner, lengthy. One of the things in watching him is that he's not a good breakdown guy. In essence, he doesn't read the route of a receiver well. When he wins, it's because he kind of plants and drives hard to the football. He can make a play because of his length and his size. But a lot of times he misreads a route when that receiver is coming downfield and he gets beat. And like Eli, when he gets beat, man, he gets beat bad. It's not just a little beat. It's not pro beat. It's high school beat. That's how bad it is for him. And again, there's a reason why Prince is still there. Now, here's my belief. I think both Apple and Prince probably make a 53-man roster somewhere. It's supply and demand today.
Right.
You just don't have enough of those type players. And are you expecting a rookie with no OTAs, no rookie camps?
That's the key.
Who knows what's going to happen with training camp? A lot of veteran coaches won't say it, but I think they would say, you know what, man, I can't put that rookie out there. I can't do it. I got to go with the veteran. And if it comes down to numbers, am I going to go with that veteran or the rookie? You're going to have to make that choice in a very unusual and an unprecedented offseason.
Very unprecedented offseason as well. Will we have people in the stands? We don't know yet, right? And the schedule is coming out tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit about the schedule, Mike and Bob, as well as let's talk about this man here, the legend, Mr. Don Shula passed away, and Mike, I guess I recall Don Shula being in the Tulane Stadium, playing those Super Bowls with the teams, right? And I was always a Dolphins fan because the Saints weren't winning at that time. How do you feel about what Shula was able to accomplish being the winningest NFL coach in history?
I think Belichick passes him because I think, this is Bill's life to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll pass Don. But Don, to me, was always the gold standard of coaches. Growing up, late 60s and 70s, Don made that mark.
Yeah.
And you think about what he did for South Florida. Growing up, you didn't read about all these players coming out of the Florida high school ranks. Was Miami a good football team in the 60s and 70s? No. Mm-hmm. Schnellenberger changed all that around late 70s and into the 80s. Bobby Bowden came in and revitalized the Florida State program. Was Florida really any good? They were up and down all over the place.
Until Spurrier, yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was Shula's influence. And Don always carried the scar. Listen, we all carry him. He carried the scar. He came in as a 33-year-old head coach, and he was the first head coach to lose a Super Bowl to an AFL team, because he was in Baltimore, and right. Joe had that magical moment with the Jets. And that was always friction between him and Rosenblum afterwards, the owner. And so his contract's up, goes to Miami. And it's part of the article I'm writing this week for the Homer Courier, but I got to talk to Hank Stram. Hank worked with us for a couple of years. And Hank was like, I called up Shula and said, what are you doing? Why are you leaving the Colts to go to Miami? You're not going to win there. And he was like, Henry, don't worry about it. Henry, don't worry about it. He said, listen, I got a couple players down there. I got a quarterback. He had Bob Greasy already, and he had Zonka already. He said, we just need a few pieces of the puzzle, and we'll be back in the hunt. And he went out and get Paul Warfield from the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
And he built that no-name defense. But it was his standard of excellence. He was to the NFL what Paul Bear Bryant was to college football. He was the gold standard of which you measured everybody by. And you think about it, first Super Bowl he goes to, he gets the tar kicked out of him by the Cowboys. And Cowboys' first Super Bowl, they beat him in Tulane Stadium. Then he wins back-to-back, and he chases perfection and gets it with the Dolphins. And his team was never the same. You know why? Because Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Paul Warfield all signed with the World Football League.
Right. Yeah.
They all
I remember.
left. Yeah. And so all of a sudden now, Shula's got to reshuffle that team. They were always in the playoffs, but it opened the door for the Steelers. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Steelers. I was a Steelers fan growing up also because there were so many Louisiana connections there. Actually, I got it. They lived not far from me. Frank Lewis played with the Steelers for a number of years, was a first-round pick. But they had a lot of Southern connections, and Terry, who I've gotten to know throughout the years, and he was there. And so I don't know what would have happened, but it would have been an interesting AFC championship game that next year had the Dolphins had Shula, had Zonka, Kick, Warfield go up against that defense of the Steelers.
Yeah.
And he continued to win, but the greatness of him was he won with Unitas, he won with Earl Morrow, he won with Bob Greasy, he won with David Woodley, he won with Dan Marino.
Yeah.
And he changed along the way. Some people are just hard-headed in life. They refuse to change. Don was smart enough, like all great coaches or business people are, to change with the times of the way things are, but their core fundamentals stayed the same. You weren't going to get around messing with Shula because if you were, then you go somewhere else.
Well,
You're going to be there.
let me ask you this question, and Bob, this may be on your mind as well, right? We're coming down to the twilight of Breeze's career, and you just said that Sheila had the opportunity to win with different type of quarterbacks. Do you believe Sean Payton can do the same?
I absolutely believe that he can. I'd bet a paycheck on it. I'd bet a year's paycheck on it. And and Mike, you could speak to this certainly more than I can because you know Coach Payton personally. I think that there's a part of me that believes that there's a part of Coach Payton that is embracing the opportunity to attack this thing without number 9 behind center. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that he's trying to push Breeze out the door or that he's anxious for Drew to leave whatsoever. I just think the competitive side of Coach Payton wants to attack this league with a new and looking forward to the challenge of attacking this league with a new quarterback and installing his system around a new quarterback.
I think one of the things with Sean, he understands the greatness of Breeze. And he has told us many times that the next guy is not going to be number 9. And he's not going to do the same things that number 9 did. But I wondered a little bit because I'd heard enough about Drew and that he's pretty strong-willed. Okay. So when the Saints signed him, I wondered how him and Sean would get along because I knew from other people in Dallas, they had told me, man, listen, Sean's pretty strong-willed about certain things. And yet it's been seamless between the two of them of how they were able to make this mesh when Belichick and Brady couldn't do it. They couldn't make it work at the end. And I think that marriage has long been over. It's almost like they stayed for the kids. We almost stayed a couple of years because of the kids.
Right.
It looked that way to me from the outside looking in. And I know Brady will say the right things and Belichick will say it. But come on, you could almost feel that friction between the two of them. But Sean has always went out of his way to praise Drew. And Drew's done the same thing with Sean. They work so well together. Yeah. This Saints team will look differently without Drew Brees. It's not going to be the same. It will not be the same type football team because you're not going to get another guy that can throw the football as accurately as what he can. Yes. I mean, it's unbelievable of what he can do because you can say, well, I can bring this guy in and Sean will change him. It's like if I'm teaching someone college calculus and he's a C- student, I can get him. I think I could get him to a B. I think my background would say I can get him to a B. I'll never get him to an A. And so that's why I look at Jameis Winston, and we didn't bring it up, but I look at him that way. There are certain things in Jameis I can get him a little bit better at. I can get him a little bit better with his reads and where to go with the football. But it's not scheme. It's not coaching. It's not organization. There are parts of it that you can get better at as a person, as a player. But that streakiness of I can put the football anywhere on the field, Jameis will always have. I talked to Gay Culverhouse, the former owner of the Bucs, as part of an article I did last week. And Gay said, this reminds me so much of Vinny Testaverde. And Vinny played in this league 20-something years. And he started for 7 teams. But Vinny, look at the numbers. Vinny threw almost as many interceptions as he did touchdowns.
Yep.
In that time frame. So there was something in Vinny, and he has a lot of similarities to Jameis in that he was a big, strong-arm guy. I can get that ball in that tight window. Drew never was like that. You know why? He didn't have that rifle. He didn't have that. So he learned to do it differently. Okay? And we haven't seen enough of Taysom to say what type of player he is going to be as a passer. We see him in practice, and he's erratic.
Right.
But I agree with Bob in that the next guy Peyton will have success with. He will. but it'll be different. It won't be like with number 9 and that all of these little kind of short intermediate throws. Peyton's going to adjust his game to that player.
Well, we saw it with Bridgewater, right? He did that with Bridgewater.
Yeah, because Teddy was more like Drew than I think most people would like to admit. His game was the short intermediate part of the game. Yep. What Jameis does well, the middle to long pass. Mm-hmm. And man, it comes out of there. He came to the Manning camp, and I'll put him in the category of there's probably 4 or 5 guys. It's not watching the pass, it's hearing it. That ball comes out of there, it's like you hear it.
Yeah.
You can hear the revolutions come off of it. Man, he threw the football, and everybody's looking at one another like, whoa. Yeah. You don't want to get in front of that, babe, if it's that close. But I think there are bits and pieces of every quarterback that's a little bit different. I think Baker Mayfield's like that. I think he's going to be a streaky quarterback no matter what in his career. I look at Sam Darnold. He doesn't feel pressure from the backside. You watch him with the Jets. He's holding the ball. That guy's right there. He doesn't even feel him. He wasn't, and he was like that at SC. You can help a little bit, but he's still going to have part of that with him. With Drew, he didn't have the gun. He didn't, he wasn't blessed by God with that. He was blessed with accuracy skills and smarts and the ability to quickly read downfield. You like a jet pilot. I talked to Bobby J about this so much. He's like, Mike, you always say that about the jet pilot, but it's true. You like a fighter pilot. You in there, okay, you make one wrong move and it's an interception. Mm-hmm. And you got a second to think about it. Okay, I'm reading this, I'm reading that. That's where I'm going with it. And a lot of times I see it in college quarterbacks today too. They wait till the receiver gets open before they make a throw. The anticipation skills aren't there. I see it with Jordan Love at Utah State. Now, and I think the world of him as a guy, as a player, and maybe he'll get better that way. But watch him play. He doesn't anticipate that cut or that turn and make watch Joe Burrow. He's different. Watch Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. Different. Yeah. You're talking about 2 different guys here, and then you throw a Jordan Love. One thing I see with Herbert, almost like he's got a bit of a yo-yo on it. Man, I want to throw, and not all confident. Of a sudden his receiver's covered.
Yeah.
If he goes with the initial throw, it's okay. But sometimes he doesn't do that because I think sometimes he lets all of it kind of sink into his head. And I'm waiting. And if you wait in this league, you get beat. One of the interesting things we'll watch in training camp, and I don't know how much we'll have of it, is the fact that Tommy Stevens was not only a roommate, was not only a teammate of DeJuan Johnson, he was a roommate. And he told, because I had read up about it, and Tommy came to the Manning camp, and he was telling me, man, I think DeJuan, I'm hoping he can bounce back at Oregon. And he had a long talk with Justin Herbert about, man, you got a big target guy there. And he really struggled that final year at Penn State. He lost his confidence. Mm-hmm. He dropped a lot of easy catches. You could see it wasn't to his hands. It was between the ears. He had no confidence there. And I thought he played pretty well last year. He's limited sometimes with his routes, and I think that he'll have to get better at. But, man, you talk about a guy that's carved out of stone. It's DeJuan Johnson when you're going to see him. And Marquez is just the opposite. Marquez, just get him up the field. Tennessee, I mean, I don't know what they were doing at quarterback, but it made all the receivers look bad because that quarterback's holding on to the ball forever. I'm like, get rid of it. Somebody's got to be open. Get rid of it. And then so the narrative became, oh, those guys don't run good routes. That ain't the fact. It was the quarterback that screwed up the timing of it because he's holding on to the ball for a long time. I want to watch Marquez because I think he's a guy that's got a lot of potential as a player, highly recruited, almost went to Ole Miss. When Ole Miss was grabbing all those receivers, we know what was happening there. They were grabbing all those receivers from the Deep South, and, man, they had an all-star team of receivers. He goes to Tennessee. but he averaged over 20 yards a catch, last year, and almost 18, in 2019 on a team that didn't throw the football well. So that to me is impressive when you can do that. And he's one of these guys that, depending on how long you have a training camp, I think will be someone to watch, because I do know one thing. I bet Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Stevens launches a couple of them out there. Just say, go get it. Just go get it.
One guy, who was this comment? All right. He said, Mike, Traquan Smith, does he take the next step? Right quick. Does he take the next step?
But he's got a lot of confidence or lack of issues. You can see in him that he's streaky as a player. It has nothing to do with him understanding the offense. It's a between the ears type of thing with him. He's got to have a breakout year. They're counting on him. And you can say, well, he's the fourth or the fifth option. Well, what happens if Emmanuel Sanders gets hurt?
Right.
What happens if somebody goes down? Now, you're no longer the fourth option. You're the third option. So it's a major year for Traquan. I think he's very gifted. Sean likes him a lot. And I think it was a big part of why they passed on a receiver, because of the fact that they felt that, hey, we're going to give it one more shot with him. He's talented, but I wonder a little bit about a guy who's not real confident in himself. Because at this stage, you should be. It's not like you're a rookie anymore.
Well, third year, right?
Third year, yeah.
All right. Logan Ryan is still out there, Bob. Should the Saints consider him?
Consider, sure. But, like Mike said, there's a number of big-name cornerbacks still out there, a couple of whom I would love to see in uniform. But you got to find out what's going on with these veterans and why they're still out there. I think Logan Ryan is one of those guys that is still looking for a big money contract.
Yep.
Somebody's got to get through to his agent and make the player and that agent open their eyes. You got to get yourself on a roster. You'll get paid if you're good enough. You'll have an opportunity at this stage. I think all these guys will that are still out there to sign on with somebody as for a 1-year prove it deal. So you come into camp. You earn your spot, and Logan Ryan's going to play, regardless of where he lands. He's still a very good cornerback at this stage of his career. So if you come in someplace on a 1-year deal at a reasonable amount, you'll be able to earn a bigger contract once you hit free agency next year.
Logan got paid already.
You got paid?
Right?
Yeah, he got paid.
You're all right.
The Patriots went to the Titans.
Yeah.
And I do stuff for the Titans radio network. And he was a good player there.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't quite hit the heights that he did in New England, though. And listen, anytime that guy leaves the Patriots, you wonder a little bit. Now, Akeem Hicks is a different guy because, man, he became unbelievable when he went to Chicago until he got hurt. But he's one of the few. Logan wanted a lot of money, and then they got Christian Fulton in round 2. And I think they've made the choice. If they're going to pay somebody, they're going to pay Adoree Jackson.
Yeah.
They're going to pay him. They're not going to pay Logan Ryan. So my thing, if I'm Logan, I don't need to sign today. I would like to, but I don't need to. But what happens, this might sound morbid, but what happens if a cornerback goes down to an injury?
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting right there, and I can get my money then.
Good
they're
point.
Pay me more than they'll pay me today.
Good point. All right. Couple of quick questions before we wrap up the show, guys. Calvin wants to know about Davenport. Will he have a good year in 2020?
He's got to stay healthy. I don't think that there's any question that Marcus Davenport has flashed how talented a player he can be. He's a better run stopper than a lot of people thought that he would, almost from the start. And he has certainly shown that he could be a pass rushing nightmare, and complement Cam Jordan on the other edge very well. The only issue anybody really has with Marcus Davenport is his ability to stay on the field. And you guys please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's had the same issue, with the same foot for 2 years in a row now. That's got to be a little bit concerning. But certainly the player has to put the injury history behind him. He's shown us what he can do on the field. I don't think there's any questioning his talent. He just needs to stay on the field to do it.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I think it's more of a health issue than anything else. Last offseason, Ryan Nielsen works our Louisiana line camp. And so I got to spend some time with him, and I asked him about Marcus. And he said, Mike, right now, and he said, I've heard you use this terminology. So he said, I'll throw it right back at you. There are two different kind of carpenters in this world. There's a carpenter helper and a finished carpenter, right? Two guys.
Right.
But two different guys. Right now, Marcus is not the finished carpenter.
Right.
He's a carpenter helper at this point. But he said, I think one day he's going to be the finished carpenter. He was having a good season 2 years ago. Then he has the foot injury. You look at it this year. I thought he was having a good year again, and he goes down with it. So the concern for me has always been not at him as a player, but now over the last 2 years, the foot injury. The play against the run is interesting because of the fact I think he got a bad label for that. The reasoning why is when he was at UT San Antonio and talking to Coach Wilson, Frank told me I couldn't keep him in one spot. I'd have to move him.
Okay.
Because, you can adjust your blocking if I know he's always coming from the left. I can adjust my blocking if he's always coming from the right. So we'd move him. We'd stand him up. We'd put him his hand in the dirt. So he said, in essence, we put him at a disadvantage that if he'd have been always on the right side, it would have been different. He'd have been a dominant guy no matter what. But because of the way they used him at UT San Antonio, you saw what was happening. And so he got labeled something he really wasn't. And he was a former wideout. So, first 2 years, he's probably weighing 240 pounds. I see that a 6'7", 240-pound guy. Man, I'm running the ball at him. I don't want him to come rushing off the edge all the time. So I'm going to slow him down. Well, when he got to be a 270-pound guy, then that's a different story. So I think what happened earlier in his career stayed with him.
Okay.
Because if I'm playing UT San Antonio and I know which guy I'm going to rush that's going to give me trouble, I'm going to slow him down by rushing the ball at him. So he got kind of caught into that. I thought he's played the run well. His closing speed to the quarterback for a big man is unique. Because, man, he can close in that area very, very quickly. And I think that's the mark of a great pass rusher, that ability to close. And you know what that's all about? Lower body power. Because that's how you generate your speed as a speed pass rusher. It's all from the butt on down. And that's why you see Danielle Hunter have that type of career. He was so close at LSU, but wasn't making the play. So I'd ask Hunter, what made the difference? He's like, man, Mike, easy. He said, man, I got much stronger from the waist down. He said, I generated that power and that ability to cut the corner. I heard Howie Long make a similar comment the other day with Colin that, man, I worked on my lower body power, and that gave me my pass rush skills that I was okay at Villanova. I was good in the NFL. So Howie was great, but it's something all these guys want to look great. They want to look like Mr. Olympia. So you're working with your arms and your shoulders. You know what you forget? From the waist down. That's how you generate your speed through that power. And it's something you have to learn. And I think Marcus has learned that. And I think he's getting closer, if he's healthy, to be that finished carpenter.
Good point. It's like those bodybuilders you see all up here, right? And got pencil legs, right? So, all right, Bob, quick. Let's take this one from Brandon. Kiko or Alex, will they be cut because of Bocce and Bond?
No, Brandon, absolutely not. Great question, and thank you for tuning in. No, neither one are going to be in jeopardy of being cut this year, especially Anzalone. Just like with Davenport, we have seen what Anzalone can do when he stayed healthy and on the field. And it's the same thing with Kiko. I know Kiko is rehabilitating his knee. I haven't heard how his rehab is going, but they are both, I believe, firmly in the plans of the Saints this year. I know I have written about Kiko Alonso being a potential cap casualty, but that would be the coaches showing an awful lot of faith in Zach Bond, or the undrafted Joe Bocci, making leaps and bounds to understand this system in a year we don't have OTAs. So that's why Zach Bond is obviously going to be in the starting lineup ASAP, sooner rather than later. Bocci, I agree with what Mike said and Kyle said earlier. I think he's got a real good shot to make this team, but I don't think Anzalone for sure, and probably not Alonso, are in danger of being cut this season.
If both guys are healthy, they make the team. It's easy.
Yeah.
Easy. And
all right.
One with Kiko, he's had that surgery before. He knows how to rehab it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is bad to say, but if you've had an injury and you get it again, you much better rehabbing it the second and the third time than you are the first. Man, sure. You're by yourself trying to rehab. Now he understands it. And the thing with Alex is he's a talented player. Just can't keep him healthy. And that shoulder, you wonder a little bit about, because that's been chronic with him. He's had the shoulder redone again, and you just hope he can stay healthy. But I think both of them make the roster, and I think they'll ease Bond into the lineup. I don't think all of a sudden he's going to be the guy. I think they'll ease him into that alignment just because he's new to the position too. He's a former quarterback, and so he's really only played 2 years.
Right.
At linebacker.
And what about Caden Ellis?
Well,
people forget about Caden.
We'll find out a lot about him. I
All
thought
right.
he looked good in practice, but that's practice. Practice is, as Ricky Jackson would always tell me, practice is for the unskilled. You got to do it in a game.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man, I will always remember that one, Mike. Oh, my God. That's from the city champ. That came from the city champ, man.
I hate to say it, but that's true. Sometimes the great players aren't the greatest practice players. And Ricky would always say, man, all I know is I can play. You know, when it comes down to a game, I can play. That practice stuff, let that rookie do that. I don't need to go through all that.
Okay. And one last one, man. Do we bring back Teo or Anthony?
I think that if you brought any of them back, it would be Anthony because of his special teams play.
Okay. All right. Good. Looks like we lost you, Bob. Are you still in the queue? All right. It's you and me, Mr. Detillier. Any last words, comments for the Who Dat Nation to let them know how everything may play out, especially with this NFL schedule coming out tomorrow? Looks like the Saints have a difficult schedule coming down the pipe anyway.
And all I know is if I was a season ticket holder, I would have got my money's worth this year.
Yeah.
You look at that schedule.
Yeah.
That is about as impressive. And we were talking about this, Bobby J and I were talking about this in December when it came out. We had no idea Tom Brady would be in Tampa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you look at, you're playing the AFC West, and where you'll see the best in the game, with Patrick Mahomes. An interesting get out of Dodge spring break deal to Las Vegas, if that happens, if everything's good. Because, man, listen, Amy Trask told me this last year. She said, Mike, and she said, I was with the Raiders 23 years. The Raiders will never have home field advantage again. You know why? The casinos are buying up all the tickets. It's going to be out-of-towners. They will never, ever, ever have home field advantage again playing in Las Vegas. Wow. They're going to have as many. Because you know what? For most people, road trip, hey, let's go. I got the girlfriend, got the wife,
right.
A couple dudes want to go. Hey, let's go. We out of there. Yeah. Oh, so where are you going to go if you play in December? Do you? And this is nothing against Kansas City or Boston or whatever. Man, I got to go to Las Vegas. I'm out of here, Jack. I'm going. And you don't have to tell people from in the Bayou and in Louisiana about Las Vegas. They're ready to roll.
Ready.
So
ready.
So you get it, and I think the Chargers are a really good football team. I think they're really good. And I think Drew Lock is going to make the Broncos a really good team, too. So, man, it's an interesting schedule, but you look at who you got to play and where you got to play them. Even before Brady came to Tampa, this would look like a great, great schedule. It really did. And now, man, you just don't know. But all I can tell you is it's the best home schedule that I've seen that I can remember in my lifetime playing at home in that Superdome. Hopefully, we'll get to see them all. But man, that home schedule's terrific.
Yeah, terrific. We got some top tier quarterbacks coming into town, some battles to be won, and we have Drew Brees and Tom Brady not once a year, not once every 4 years, right? Twice this season.
And that's prime time, both of them. Both games, prime time.
I was saying the same thing, Mike. I was like, man, the NFL, if they want to capitalize on that opening weekend, you got to put Brady and Brees prime time.
Well, you know, Kyle, what's interesting, and I did a show out west in Seattle this afternoon, and John Clayton is reporting. Now, again, this is John, who's at one time was as connected as anybody in this league.
Right.
That the NFL are going to try to do the first 4 games NFC versus AFC. Now, we'll see if that's actually true. And I don't know that for a fact. But John wouldn't have said it unless he had some pretty decent knowledge that maybe something like that would happen. And that would be interesting.
That's good because, college is unsure what's going to happen there, right? So
because it would be September, and if the NFL thought they got delayed, it would make sense that, okay, you got those NFC games, NFC versus NFC, in October all the way through. It would make sense. I don't know, did they think about all that when they made this schedule? Yeah, that part I don't know. But the fact that Clayton, now if it'd be some guy on a, internet saying it is one thing,
right?
But Clayton's another. I mean, because John at one time he was pretty well connected. So we'll see if some of that is true or all of it's true, and maybe partially it might be true. They may have figured, you know what? Let's try it this way, and if we get delayed a month and we got to skip some games, come October, NFC versus NFC, AFC versus the AFC.
Yeah. Some good stuff, man. So I am anticipating some great games. And Russ, how many more years do you believe Drew has? Guys, look, 1 or 2, and Mike is holding up the number 1. He's number 1. So, look, guys, I said it a few weeks ago, right, Bob? When Sean Payton said this is his final season,
he knew something.
I'm like, come on, he can backtrack and crawfish all you want. He knew something. He was telling us. He was laying it down, but there's always a possibility, right, Mike?
Well, listen, it's possible I might win the Powerball tonight. Okay? So I would say something else, but I'd get somebody angry with me. But it's possible for anything. But all I know is that I think Sean's comment was actually him telling you. And Drew's kind of affection with the networks, we know where that's leading. And man, listen, the hardest thing you get hit in the booth with is a piece of paper. And you getting what, 8, 9, 10 million bucks to do that? Oh, that might not be too bad. So, and I think Drew knows more than anybody when it's time. And the fact that he considered it, man, I always say this about retirement. When you start thinking about it, you well on your way.
Yep.
You well on your way. In any business that you're in, not just football, not just sports, but in any business, when you're thinking about it, you well down the path. And so I think it's this year for Drew.
Man, you really make me kind of scared. My wife is talking about retirement on me, so
You best watch it then.
Yeah. All right, Brandon Patrick Robinson needs to be cut immediately. All right. Facebook user anonymous. Drew took the job at NBC knowing that this is his last run.
Listen,
lose or draw.
I think that's pretty accurate. I think that's pretty accurate.
All right, guys. Thank you all for the comments tonight. Bob, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Well, folks, first of all, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to what I thought was an outstanding show tonight.
Great show. Thank you, Mike.
Yes. Thank you to the incomparable Mike Detillier, and a star in the making, we hope, and Mr. Keith Washington for taking some time to join us tonight. Hopefully it's not going to be the last time we have either one of you gentlemen on. But to follow me, all you need to do is go to Facebook and find Bob Rose, or Twitter at BobbyR2613. The easiest way to find my writings, which of course are through the Saints News Network and SI.com, is go to the Saints News Network or SI.com. Give myself as well as a bunch of other writers through the Saints News Network a follow, or follow our Bayou Blitz Facebook page, I think we're creeping up on 1,500 members now, most of which are very, very active, free to share information and help out each other. You guys have been wonderful and an absolute pleasure to work with. So I thank you all very much.
All right. And Mike, how can they find you on the World Wide Web?
Oh, goodness. Bob did a good job with all that. Man. Twitter at Mike Detillier, Facebook, Mike Detillier, and what Bob says on all the other stuff. Man, listen, it don't take long for you to find me.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm on, this is 53. This is my 53rd show, either doing what we do on radio, TV, and today's only Wednesday. So goes to show football don't end. God bless them, though, man.
Yeah.
But thank y'all. This great group here. Pleasure to be involved. You got some great people here with Kyle and Bob and John. They do a fantastic job along with everybody else. So appreciate you watching tonight.
And guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Saints News Network. You can always find us on the World Wide Web at Saints News, on Twitter, Instagram, as well as on Facebook at Saints News. This is Kyle T. Mosley with Bob Rose and Mike Detillier. You guys have a great one. Who dat, baby? Take care.